installing new front rotors and brake pads on a second-gen Ford Explorer. Welcome everyone to the Derpzilla channel, and for today I'll be upgrading the front brakes on my 2000 Ford Explorer XLT. I'll be going with some new Power Stop front rotors and their ceramic pads that I have right over here on my workbench. Here we go. This is the rotor I went with. This is their special coated rotor, supposed to weather the elements a little bit better than the non-coated ones. Of course, they will eventually rust just like any rotor, but these do hold up quite well. I put a set on my wife's 2019 Ford Mustang EcoBoost some time ago, and they still look practically new, so I'm really shocked. That's why I bought this pretty much same kit for the Explorer, and here are the Evolution Plus ceramic pads, also by Power Stop. Got the whole kit. They sell as an individual front set. They sell a rear set and a full kit. I bought the full kit because I did also do the rear rotors and pads. You can watch that video up here. And so now I'm going to finish off the brake upgrade or brake revitalization, really, because they were worn pretty bad. I'll show you guys when I get this installed. I actually already have done the passenger side to give me a quick refresher, since it's been a number of years, as I noticed by how bad the pads look since I did this. But let's go ahead and go over what we need for this brake installation. And the process is going to be very similar to most vehicles, not just Explorers, but pretty much any disc setup, unless you got some kind of really fancy car. The overall procedures are very similar. So if you're looking on installing or upgrading your front rotors, front pads on your vehicle, most of these techniques and stuff will apply for you. But this is what we're going to need for this specific car. Very simple. Only two different sockets. You need a 13 millimeter and a 15 millimeter. You're going to want, of course, a torque wrench, because we will have to torque these bolts to spec on the vehicle. I went with about 95 foot-pounds on the caliper mount and 25 foot-pounds on the caliper bolts themselves. And then, of course, there's 100 foot-pounds on the wheel lugs for your second-gen Ford Explorer. Now, another thing we're going to be using is you're going to have some nice big grippy pliers like these that can open up real wide to help compress the caliper piston back into the caliper to make room for the new thicker pads. Or you can use one of these fancy caliper expansion tools. I'm not sure what these called, a spreader or whatever. You're going to want, of course, an impact or a lug nut wrench with whatever size socket for your lug nuts. I don't remember what the OEM ones are. I'm running Gorilla lug nuts, so I have my Gorilla lug nut key, which is a 13/16 socket to actually put those on. And then if you're super fancy, you can have the very, very useful OEM service manual for your vehicle. I picked this up, I don't know, 15 years ago when I bought the car. I still reference it for torque specs and stuff like that. And then, of course, if you want to use a ratchet of some sort or power tool or whatever works for you, and a good brush and some brake grease. So pretty much brake clean, of course, as well. We're going to want to clean our new rotor just to make sure it doesn't have any shipping grease or any kind of chemical on there. We want to make sure it's nice and clean with the brake clean. And, of course, clean up our mess on the car. And then that's pretty much what we're going to need. So let's go ahead and get to the car, get the wheel off, and let's get this install going. Let's go ahead and get this wheel off. Of course, here we have the brake rotor caliper and the brake caliper bracket. Now, first we're going to need to actually remove the brake caliper, and that's these 13 millimeter bolts right here and right here. You can see that right here. And then we can actually pull this caliper out of the way. And what I do is I just usually just sit up here. You can use a bungee cord and kind of hang it, or you can stick it, wherever you can reach. There's a very short brake line here, so you don't have a lot of flexibility with that. Or you can get like, something you can set here and just set it on there like a bucket or something. But usually I just kind of sit it right here, and then once that's out of the way, we can remove the brake caliper bracket, and that's two 15 millimeter bolts. And it's going to be hard to show you that, but they're kind of right back here and right here. I'll show you that a little bit better once I get the caliper out of the way. Then once we get that out of the way, we can just take the caliper bracket off, set on the ground, and then the rotor should just slide right off. If it's stuck, tap it with a non-marring hammer a little bit, and it should break loose any kind of rust or anything like that. And then, of course, the rotor comes out of the way, and then we can proceed. Caliper bolts have been removed. And here comes brake caliper. And I'm just going to set it up here for right now. Brake pads and brake caliper mount. Pads you should be able to slide, but these are really old and crusty, so they're not really wanting to come out very well. So I'm just going to go ahead and I will remove the bracket. Here are the two 15mm caliper bracket bolts, one here and the other one right here. These ones are kind of tough, especially if you haven't taken these off in quite some time, and I would suggest hitting it with some penetration grease or WD-40 or whatever. Let's soak in for a little bit, and then we'll see if we can actually get these bolts removed, and then this whole bracket will come free. I still have the brake pads in here. If you can pry these off with like a screwdriver, since mine are kind of rusted to the clips, but they should come off with the bracket, so I'm not too worried about it right now. So let's go ahead and get these bolts removed, and then we can go ahead and get this bracket off. Bolts are looking pretty crusty. Hopefully you can see that. And let's go ahead and get this bracket off. Bracket with the brake pad. And now we can just pull these off. And with the clips, you can pull these clips off as well. We're going to replace those. We'll take a look at our brake pad health here. Maybe in the light a little bit better. But they are worn. They are well worn. So definitely a good time to replace them. We're going to clean up our bracket. Remove our rotor. Should slide out. Rotor's looking pretty crusty. Gonna hit this with a brake clean. Gonna use my brush here to clean off some of the surfaces of where the bolts, mount to. Clean up some of this cobwebs. Good to make sure this is nice and clean. Don't have any big chunks of rust. Make sure that's all cleaned up. Surface is nice and smooth, not tore up. Mine's a little bit worn, but not horrible. This is relatively new. I don't know if you saw my video where I replaced the front hubs. That's when these why mine look relatively decent. And yeah, I'll clean up bracket, clean up the caliper a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and get the caliper pistons pushed in, and then we can get the new clips and everything installed. Sprayed everything down with some brake clean, wiped everything down as good as I could. It still looks pretty sloppy. I didn't do like a full detailed job. Just gave it a good wipe down, especially where all the contact points are. Just make sure you inspect for any kind of leaks. If your caliper's leaking, if your brake lines are leaking. I didn't see any leaks. I do note my upper control arm bearing right here is shot. I'm actually going to be replacing that this weekend, not today, because my daughter needs a car tomorrow, and I don't have time to get it to an alignment shop before she needs it. So that's why I'm just doing the brakes right now. But yeah, that is shot. That is not good. That's a Moog, actually an aftermarket one, and I guess a lot of time of my car sitting. Between driving and sitting and driving for long periods of time, the rubber boot's completely corroded away. And the upper control arm is pretty much, yeah. And for me, it's easier to just replace the whole upper control arm. They're relatively inexpensive versus trying to press in the new bushing or bearing or whatever. So that's why I'm just replacing the whole arm once again. But yeah, back to the brakes. Next up, after everything's wiped down, we do have a, let's see if we can get some better lighting here. Maybe, maybe not. Here we go. There's a clip in here that also comes in, at least the pack with power stop. They gave me this clip to replace and then the 2 clips for the caliper mount. So I'll be replacing both of these. But of course, it's kind of underneath the caliper pistons. So I'm going to press these back into place, into the caliper. And I'm just going to be using some big chunky pliers to do that. So let's go ahead and get these pushed in. Now, of course, you can use a specialties tool, or there's a number of different tools that they offer. You can rent from AutoZone. You can buy relatively inexpensive. But I'm just going to use the pliers. So hopefully they work for me. Now, if you have some fancy calipers, yours are painted and still look good, you want to put a microfiber or something between the jaws and the caliper itself so you don't mar it up. All right, I did leak a little bit of brake fluid. Try to reposition this because I got brake fluid on my light. I didn't drain it quite enough out of my brake cylinder. And of course, when compressing the caliper piston, pushed out the fluid from the caliper up into the reservoir and overflowed it a little bit. So I'm gonna have to wipe up that mess. Make sure you drain out more than I did. Not sure if you were able to see, but I was able to compress the caliper pistons back into the caliper. It pushed out a lot of fluid and actually overflowed, even though I drained my brake reservoir somewhat. Between my really low brakes and replacing all 4 of them today and yesterday, it actually was enough to still overflow my reservoir all over the place, made a big mess. So if you notice your brake pads are super worn, you're going to have to compress further, and you'll be pushing out more fluid from the caliper into the reservoir and potentially overflowing. So make sure you drain out extra if you have really worn brakes. But yeah, now we can get this clip off. See if I can get some better angle on the lighting. Maybe. Oh, here we go. And then we should be able to just pop that off. I'll clean this up, and then we'll install the replacement clip. And we'll add a little bit of grease to this. We'll add a little bit of grease to the clip, and we'll wipe this down a little bit better. And then we should be able to get ready for the brake pads. So let's go. While that dries, I'm going to go ahead and install the new rotor and get that situated. Looks good, and then if you want to hold it in place, you could always toss on a lug nut or whatever to keep it maybe a little bit straighter. Now that we have that in place, we do have our bracket. I'm going to go ahead and grease this up and add the clips that came with the new brake pads, and those will be snapping in place right here. So I'm going to add some grease in this spot here, in this little lip where the clip's going to sit, here, here, and here. Put the clips in place, add a little grease to the actual outside of the clip as well, and then we can mount this up back on the car around the rotor. And we'll add some grease to the clip. Perfect. So now we can go ahead and get this installed back in the car. Next up, we need to torque this to about 95 foot-pounds. So I'm going to torque the 215 millimeters to that. And of course, I got a little bit of grease on the rotor, so make sure you'll keep wiping that up. Make sure none of that grease stays on the rotor once you finish up your install. "95 foot-pounds on the caliper bracket mount, and now we can go back to the caliper, get this greased up right here, and I like to apply grease on this back side here and here. This is going to make contact to your pad, and then also I like to grease the surface of the pistons, which will also be making contact to the pad. I will also be adding some grease where that new replacement clip right here clips on, so I put some down here. So I'll do that first. I'll put some grease on here. I'll get that clip into place. It's kind of hard. It snaps in, but it's a little bit kind of finicky. And then once that's snapped in, then I'll add that grease here as mentioned. And then we can get the pads installed. New clip goes in like that. These hook around the little lip on the inside, so it'll be going on like this. Kind of tricky to get this to slide in, so hopefully I'll have good luck. Kind of a pain, but it snapped in. I'm gonna add some grease to this surface, which will be interfacing with the pads, and then of course here, 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 and the piston surface as well. Just make sure you don't go crazy with the grease and have it just blobs of grease, because that can attract a lot of dirt and rocks and stuff. So once you get your grease on there, just rub it in there nice and smooth, so it's a nice thin layer, but not blobbing off like like a freaking Diddy party or whatever. Quick comparison: new pad, old pad. You notice there is not much pad left on the old pad. These things are worn out. Got my miles out of them, I guess, but. Yeah, anyways, the new front pads, I believe they are, you get a pack of 4, of course 2 for each side. They are the same, so there's no way you can switch these up because they are all identical, other than the, I guess the silencer clip or whatever. So yeah, so here's my pad. You're gonna slot these in. I found it's easier by slotting in at, I think it was the top, and then scooch in the bottom like so. All right, the pads are in place. Now we can swing down the caliper and attach it with the caliper bolts. Here we are. You might have to push in the little accordion boot here for the caliper bolt to screw into to get the caliper to slide in. 13 millimeter bolts. These are about 25 foot-pound. Now we'll torque to spec. Just lost my main light, but brake install is done. Just give it a quick inspect, make sure nothing broke, nothing's leaking anywhere. Make sure you put cap back on your brake fluid reservoir, and wipe up any grease that got on the rotor. And then I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall the wheel and the lug nuts, torque to 100 foot-pounds, and put the car back down on the ground and do the bed-in procedure, whatever rotors and pads you went with, whatever brand, they have their own process. I had the power stop, so I'm gonna go follow that on the road, make sure everything's functional, and I'm good to go, and I bed in these brake pads with these rotors. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video. Just finished reinstalling the front wheels and torquing those lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos. I have the rear disc brakes. I have an upcoming video, the upper front control arms, and I have a previous other videos for the Ford Explorer, my Camaro ZL1, my wife's Mustang, tons of other stuff. Check those out. Hope to see you guys in the comments. Hope to see you guys on Instagram or any of my social media sites. Check out the merch shop. I got the Exploder hat, a number of other items. It's Zilla.com, Z1LLA.com. The shop is shop.zilla.com and Etsy.zilla.com. Between all those, I have a number of different items, shirts, hats, emblems, and other cool things. Anyways, hope you guys have a good one. Peace.